All right, I'm recording and we are good to go. So, hello everyone. Thank you for your interest in the CSA works and the cloud control matrix. My name is Lefteris Koutaris. I am the program manager of the CCM working group, and I would like to welcome you to this presentation of CCM V4. Let's visit right away the agenda of the presentation. All right. Um, so I will begin this presentation with a small introduction to the CCM V4 and its various components, and then we'll talk a bit about the V4 development activities that are planned for 2021 and which are carried out as we speak by the CCM working group. I thought at the same time to answer a couple of questions that we get often asked during our system working group call sessions. I think the answers will bring more clarity to the whereabouts of the V4 development. So some of these questions are why did we need a new version of CCM in the first place? Or was there any baseline or requirements that the V4 development was based on? And what's of course new that the V4 brings along in comparison to the V3, and how that is useful to organizations. And we'll eventually close the presentation with an overview of Cloud Security Alliance STAR program and what is to be expected by organizations for establishing a smooth transition from the previous V3 to the new V4. So let's start with an intro to the V4. The CCM is a baseline cloud security framework specifically designed to manage risk in the cloud and aid organizations by offering a set of well-structured and well-defined security domains and underlying control specifications, with the objective to simplify such organizations' approach towards achieving the controls, proper implementation, assessment, and compliance across all types of clouds. In addition to the offering of control specifications, the CCM controls are mapped and aligned to other global regulations and standards. Uh, inform organizations about the controls applicability per cloud service model and facilitates the use of SSRM-based specifications. Essentially, SSRM stands for the Shared Security Responsibility Model, to and helps organizations and specifically the two cloud parties involved in the security of the cloud, the CSPs and CSCs, to delineate their control ownership and implementation responsibility. And last but not least, the CCM, as you may already know, constitutes the backbone of the CSA STAR program and the three STAR levels for self-assessment, third-party certification, and continuous auditing. The new CCM includes new additional controls, so to better reflect the changes and the evolution of the cloud landscape, both in terms of technology, but also the legal and regulatory environment. It is comprised of a total of 17 domains compared to 16 of the version 3, and about 50% more controls. That is from 133 controls of V3 to 197 at the new version. We are going to take a deep dive into some of the main changes shortly. Here is a slide which provides a more holistic overview of all the CCM related components and corresponding activities surround the V4 development. I would like to spend some more time on this. I think will be very interesting for the attendees of the presentation to become a bit more familiarized. So some of these have already started and are currently ongoing. For instance, the implementation guidelines, the auditing guidelines, the CAKE V4 development, the mappings development, and the gap analysis and addenda that takes place at the same time, and also the metrics development for automated and continuous auditing. These are all activities that are ongoing. Also the CCM Lite on the right-hand side of the slide. This has also kicked off just recently, while the remaining ones are planned to start later this year. So I would like to go ahead and provide a brief overview per each activity so that we better understand the rationale behind each. So about the implementation guidelines development, this is an ongoing work. We have currently developed a final draft version. We are this is ongoing work, so we are expecting to have that review phase, let's say, finalized by the end of this month, and then carry on with further review of the guidance. The guidance, the implementation guidelines, represents a set of guidelines that aim to support organizations with how-to steps of how to implement its CCM security and privacy control. At this current level, the guidelines are technology or vendor agnostic, meaning that they are not tailored to a specific technology. For example, AWS or GCP specific technology in the cloud, but instead the guidelines are defined at the same high level, let's say, as its control specification, but including more details with regards to the approach that should be recommended to be followed for cloud security by cloud organizations. On the same footsteps, the auditing guidelines is an activity that has kicked off only recently from the CCM working group, that similarly to the implementation guidelines offers a how-to guide, but this time for the assessment of any given system control specification. And the objective here is that each system control is accompanied with a set of assessment guidelines with an intention to improve each auditability and helping organizations to more efficiently meet compliance. Of course, with the CCM V4 release, the cake could not be missing, the CAKE V4 development. The CAKE V4 development is currently ongoing. The final release is expected by the end of April. Needless to mention that the CAKE is the assessment questionnaire that is aligned to the CCM control specifications, and its purpose is to help organizations to conduct self-assessments for compliance against the CCM, which assessments are there validated by CSA and are published at its registry, its public registry. And the next one is the mappings. For the time being, we are conducting 3 mapping exercises. This involved a mapping of V4 to its predecessor, the CCM version 3. The idea is, of course, here to develop, to identify mainly the equivalent controls between the 2 standards, but we are also conducting a gap analysis between the 2, so that organizations are able to identify what are the deltas between them, the differences, so that they are aware of the additional requirements that the V4 brings on top of the V3. There are 2 more standards that we are currently conducting mappings. The one is the ICPA TSC Trusted Services Criteria 2017, and some of the ISOs, the ISO 27001, 02, 17, and 18. The latter 2 standards, the TSC and the ISOs, form the basis of STAR level 2 third-party certifications, and therefore they were selected as the first standards that we should be mapping the V4. These all 3 are expected to be final by the end of March, the V3 possibly a little bit earlier. And then we are planning to carry on with additional mapping activities to other standards, for example, FedRAMP or the NIST 853 and others. We are going to discuss that during our working group sessions. Then there is the CCM metrics. This is an activity run by a dedicated working group within CSA. This aims to develop metrics per system control, which are then to be used under the umbrella of CSA STAR level 3, a program which is about continuous auditing, and this is also work under development. On the right-hand side, part of the spider. Okay, the first one here listed is the core controls. This is a finished activity. This is the V4 final. Then we have the CCM Lite. So the idea here is that the current V4 is comprised of 197 control specification, and among that, it is overwhelming especially for small and medium enterprises. And in terms of resources spent or cost to meet compliance, to the amount of the controls. And the objective behind the light development is to present more lightweight V4, having a minimum set of baseline or foundational, let's say otherwise, cloud security requirements. And the objective, of course, for the light is to be a cost-effective solution for SMEs in terms of implementation and compliance effort. So thus allowing for easier V4 adoption. Then the next one is the CCM V4 SAS activity. The idea is they're developing, with the help of the working group, a subset, identifying mainly a subset of CCM core controls that are specifically relevant to the SaaS providers, but possibly also including new controls on that end. These activities plan to start later in the year, and it is expected that is greatly supported by the V4 cloud applicability matrix. Components of that matrix also existed in version 3. It involves the matrix for the controls architectural relevance, that was also in V3, the applicability of the controls per cloud service model, but we are also working on an extension to include the applicability of the controls to having an organizational relevance, as well as indicate the implementation responsibility per control by the involved cloud parties, CSPs and CSEs. So this is also ongoing work that will be presented with V4 later this year. And then there are the activity of the vendor technology specific implementation, guidelines or controls. That's an exercise that aims to provide a lower level interpretation for the implementation of the V4 controls, which are currently, as mentioned earlier, more highly abstracted and not tailored to a technology. We would like here to change that and prepare possibly guidelines that would be pointing to a specific vendor technology. This is an activity that's also planned in Q3 or Q4 of this year. Okay, so after having an overview of the activities, of these activities, most of them are run by the CCM working group. Let's see how the V4 came to be. So the upgrade of CCM V3 to the next version 4 has been imperative when considering the evolution of the cloud security landscape, technologies and standards, and the need for a more efficient auditability of the CCM controls. And that would mean that we will need to simplify the control specification, also adding the assessment guidelines, etc., as well as there was a need for alignment and integration into the CCM of security specifications deriving from other standards or deriving from new technologies introduced into the cloud. The requirements and objectives for the development, as we see them in this slide, came out of a survey that CSA conducted almost 2 years ago, where we asked the community of partners and the industry, what do we need to improve in version 3, and how the V4 should look like. So that survey resulted to a 2020 program development timeline for the V4 and a series of review activities that were handed eventually over to the CCM working group. The development of the CCM V4 was carried out by the CCM working group. However, they were, of course, that was a combined effort, meaning that there were also other CSA working groups involved into the process. But most importantly, it involved the cloud community and the professionals who volunteered to develop the new standard. So we had over 70 professionals, cloud security professionals, auditors, and a great number of organizations, that would be around 60, helping us out, which represented also providers and consumers of the cloud, as well as consulting and auditing firms. The overall development period lasted for 2 years, and that was divided into 4 major review periods. The first two were about reviewing the version 3 and essentially having the professionals suggesting changes to the previous standard, and also new control specifications that there would be candidates for the new version 4. After these two review periods, two more followed. And these two periods engaged in the first one from the two engaged the public cloud community for receiving comments. We put at the time the final draft. We made it open to the public to receive comments. We received a lot of comments at the time, and then when we collected all the comments, we put together a leadership team comprised of highly experienced professionals who finally put together the last pieces and brought it at its final form as it is today. So here's the timeline for the delivery of the components we mentioned earlier. The V4 was released just recently in January, and we are planning to release 3 mappings that I mentioned earlier, and with gap analysis in March. So this activity has to be extended as we see it here in the timeline. So the delivery should be mid to March. Actually, the implementation guidelines indicate for by end of April, and the remainders of the activities in the Q3, Q4 this year. Okay, so now let's take a closer look into the changes that were introduced in V4. Let's talk about what's new and what are the new elements and improvements which brings along when compared to its predecessor, the CCM version 3. Essentially, the objectives behind the V4 development were to update and refine as the CCM V4 controls based on the best practices that cloud organizations follow for cloud security, and the unique risks they are facing as the cloud evolves and integrates new technologies, but also while taking into consideration the best possible collaboration between providers and customers when considering their part of responsibility for managing their own risk within the cloud and within the shared infrastructure and what is the proper implementation of a security control by either side. The V4 brings along improved controls clarity, that is terms that are carrying a specific control implementation action or a policy level specification were consistently and uniformly defined across all domains and underlying controls. There were changes introduced in the number of the controls, but also within the domains themselves, fulfilling in V4 a different purpose than before. And finally, V4 comes along with two guidances. The first is for the controls implementation, and the second for controls assessment, and as well as an enhanced domain that was previously in the version 3, the supply chain domain, the STA, which now includes new controls to support the shared security responsibility model. So here's an example of the consistency achieving consistency in the methodology that was followed. And eventually that was applied across all V4 domains and controls, and how that differs with the V3. So we have here an example between V3 control and how that would be, and it is represented in the V4 version. The V4 controls appear now in active voice and have been simplified for better readability and auditability. Content that was, let's say, excessive or was used in V3 to further describe how a control should be implemented in the V4 was removed from the main control specification and was and is now introduced into the implementation guidelines. And finally, some of the changes is also that now each domain follows a top-down structure with the first control per domain corresponding to policy level controls. And as we read down more the specifications, the controls are of more at the technical level. So we have now an ordered hierarchy of specifications in each of the V4 domain. Let's move to the next one. So here's the comparison between the domains and a number of controls between the V4 and V3. The first thing here, which is important to mention, is that the V4 comes brings along a new domain, the logging and monitoring domain, which did not exist in the previous version 3. And of course, there are also other domains that had significant changes introduced into the names and the underlying number of controls. For example, the encryption and key management domain, that is now the CK, cryptography, encryption and key management, which was significantly extended to 21 controls. The previous DSI that now includes also controls for privacy and extended existing specifications, which is now up to 19 controls. Yep, and or for example, the mobile security domain, which now introduces the new concept, that of endpoint devices management. We are going to take a look into these further ahead in our presentation. When the development works are complete, since the development activities are still ongoing with respect to the guidelines and also the CSRM, each control specification will be accompanied by all these three components in order to help organizations to efficiently implement and assess the V4 controls, as well as becoming able to delineate such controls applicability and implementation responsibility by each of the two involved cloud parties. Now, as mentioned earlier, there were some changes at the domain level of the CCM V4. The previous CKM domain is now called CK. It includes a total of 21 controls. There are a couple of new controls which extend in the field of key lifecycle management. There is, of course, the GRC domain, which is the successor of the previous GRM. So here, the GRC introduces new controls for governance, risk management, and information security programs. Essentially, the compliance portion in V3 that was in the AAC domain and the relevant controls were migrated to the GRM to become GRC. And then it's the, as I mentioned earlier, the domain, which extends beyond the addressing the risk of access from devices to the cloud beyond the mobile devices, but now involves all endpoint devices, which can be found to access the cloud from its perimeter, but also beyond. Then the DSP domain, the previous DSI in version 3. This was also significantly extended now up to 19 controls, and introduces new requirements on security, but also on privacy. Of course, the new log domain that introduces control specifications for logging and monitoring tailored to the cloud. The rationale behind the inclusion of a single domain for logging and monitoring was that for making it easier for organization to assess and meet compliance on these types of controls, in comparison to the version 3, where the relevant controls were scattered across various domains. However, what we did with the group was to identify such controls and include them under a unified domain. And also, we extended also the specifications with new controls. Then it's the STE domain. The name hasn't changed. Also in V3, that's the same. Nevertheless, introduces 6 fundamental controls in addition that are deriving from the shared security responsibility model. And that is about a brief overview of the standard, which constitutes the flagship, let's say, of CSA STAR program. So under the CSA STAR, the CCM is used by organizations to assess their compliance against the control specifications by either one of the 3 STAR levels. The first level 1, it's about self-attestations. So organizations use essentially the CCM and the cake to conduct self-assessments. The STAR level 2, it's about, of course, third-party certifications or attestations. In the former case, the ISO 27001 and the CCM are used as basis for the assessment. On the latter case, on the attestation, it is the trusted services criteria and the CCM on top that are used to test compliance. And the third level, which is currently under development, it will support the continuous audit-based certification. In this slide are the main 3 products that are based on the CCM. As mentioned earlier, the STAR program, which is used for compliance and certification, and there are 2 other certificates, and including also corresponding trainings that can be pursued from individuals. These are the CCSK, the Cloud Security Knowledge, and the CCAK, which was developed only recently, the cloud auditing knowledge, which is also co-supported by Zaka, and that is soon to be published. So with the release of the V4, we also released to the public and our members a CSA transition policy. This policy foresees that organizations using the previous version of CCM as the foundation for the compliance program will be entitled with 18 months of a grace period to transition to the new version. This means essentially that companies that have the CSA STAR certification or attestation based on V3 will still be able to use it for 18 months following the new release before needing to transition to the new version. And to summarize the presentation, the CCM V4 is meant to provide the community with the best vendor neutral security and privacy control framework that was built on the experience and the feedback collected from the hundreds of or thousands of CCM users. It is a framework that is now supported with additional guidance, which makes it easier to implement and audit, and offers the much needed level of assurance for any category of cloud customers, from small and medium enterprises to larger enterprises, but also in the highly regulated business sectors. And this is it. Would like to, with that said, and the opportunity given me with this presentation, would like to welcome you to join us in Circle, join the CCM working group, join the current activities of the group, and we'll be happy to have you on board and working with you. So thank you for attending this presentation. Yes.